This is Sharon Fisher, and Teledyne ISCO would like to thank you for joining us for our webinar, Flowlink Cipher, Water Data Management and Analysis Software. I would just like to mention a quick housekeeping rule. If you have any questions during the webinar, please utilize the Q&A functions within Zoom. All questions will be answered at the end. I would also like to share that this webinar will be recorded and a video will be made available on our YouTube channel in the near future. Today, we are lucky to be joined by two of our water platform experts, Rick Dye and Daryl Kuda, who are both business development managers. With that, I would like to turn it over to Rick.
Well, thank you, Sharon, and welcome everyone today. We're very excited to present Flowlink Cipher to you. As Sharon mentioned, Daryl and I are both business development managers for Teledyne ISCO, specializing in more of the flow meter product area, and Flowlink Cipher fits right in there. So what we're going to talk about today will be Flowlink Cipher water data management and analysis software. So what is Flowlink Cipher and why did we come up with it? Well, we conducted several what we call customer interest meetings. And what we did, we went around the US, the world actually, and met with different customers to find out what was missing, what they needed. And what we found was a lot of people, a lot out there have Flowlink software, and it's very well respected and liked in the industry. But we needed something going forward. Flowlink will, not be around forever and ever. So we looked at the customer base and who we're working with. One of the things we found, obviously a lot of people are retiring. So you have a very experienced workforce. They're very knowledgeable of their system. But as time moves on, we have a newer workforce that is less experienced, but more computer savvy and are going to be more reliant on data to help them really understand their system. So they want the computer software to help them run their systems better. Also, remote access to data is now more affordable than it's ever been. So you'll see much more cell phone service, modems and things like that are less expensive, and you have coverage all over the all over the world. So again, remote access to data is the way of the future. People are doing more with less. You have less personnel, less funds. We're all dealing with that same thing, and this certainly ties in with that. And then when you have something like the laser flow, which is a non-contact area velocity meter, now you have a no maintenance device. Well, why do I need to go out and download if I can have something that's going to give me good, accurate, reliable data without going to the field? And then finally, no IT involvement. With a lot of us have experienced this over the years. You make changes to software, your IT group has to get involved to update the software, firmware, and things like that. Not a good time for anybody. So we wanted to minimize or eliminate as much as possible the IT involvement. So let's look at a little bit more on Cipher. Again, what is it? It's a cloud-based system, which is much more acceptable these days than it was in the past. It's very easy to maintain because you don't really have to do anything to it. But we're also seeing a lot of early warning systems. People want to know when I'm going to flood, when I'm going to overflow this basin or whatever it is. So alarming is becoming huge. So we get accurate data, non-contact using a laser, but we want to be able to alarm off that saying we have a problem. Data hosting and secured data hosting primarily. Government agencies, we see it, hear it every day. Governments are being hacked, companies, ransomware, the whole bit. So secure data is a big, big deal, and Cipher will provide that for you. Finally, as this program evolves, and this is what you're going to see today is where we are at currently, as we move forward, the program will continue to evolve and grow. And what I mean by that is we are going to continue to make it more intelligent, which will include things like pattern analysis, machine learning, predictive analysis, a lot of these new terms that you'll hear out there in order to make your system more of a what we would call smart sewer system. And finally, we want to be able to tie this in order to make it smart and be able to utilize what's out there. We have to be able to interface with non-Teledyne ISCO equipment. So we need to be able to get data from other sources besides ourselves in order to make this an effective system. Talk about some of the benefits real quick. Obviously, you don't need a server, so you have no hardware. So that's going to save you on capital expenditures. IT resources, big one. You have no server on site, no software installation, database management, things like that, which will make your IT group very happy. Hacking, again, servers not on your premises. Nobody is going to get in and hold you ransom based on this. Loss of data, that's another one in the past. We want to make sure that you don't lose data. If your server crashed for some reason on site, you lost all your data. With this system, you will now be in a very secure location with a very powerful firewall, automated data backup, and server redundancy. It's using an Amazon cloud server. So again, very, very secure data. And because we're using something like that, we have much higher computing power capability, and the server will automatically adjust based on the demand that goes to those servers. So a lot of things that are very, very beneficial using a cloud-based system. So some of the things you might see when Daryl and I go through this, and I'm going to start off probably the demonstration. Daryl's going to finish up with some of the more advanced new features that we're doing. But one of the first things you're going to see would be what we call the dashboard and map view. What this allows you to do is at a very quick glance, you can assess your system performance. You can see what's going on out there, but you can also customize what you want to see. So very flexible system on that. Analysis in the cloud. So we can now do custom-made templates and computed data sets, which might be statistical analysis, inflow and infiltration analysis, and things like that. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to do these kind of functions. Alarms, a big one. Alarms in the past were programmed in the field on the meter at the site. A lot of times you didn't know what to expect until you went out there, you installed it, and then you went, wow, I got some data back. I didn't know that I had that high a level. Now you can actually change those alarm conditions remotely via Flowlink Cipher. So this is going to be a huge, huge feature. Data anywhere, anytime. So now you don't have to have software located on your computer. Any computer that has access to the internet will now have access to Flowlink Cipher and your data. So very, very useful. Automatic updates. As I said, the program will continue to grow, evolve, and it's going to be dynamic. The things are going to change. And one of the things that will change will be feature enhancements. So we will add some stuff, and that's again what Daryl's going to be talking about, some of the differences between where we were and where we are now. So as we add features, this is going to be available. You won't even have to, you don't know, or you won't have to do anything to get that there. It will just be available to you. And also bug fixes, improvements. I'd like to say we'll never have a bug or a problem. We all know we will at some point, but those will be corrected on the backside. You will not have to upload any new firmware in your meters or software enhancements. So this is all done behind the scenes. So it's going to really, really make it very easy for you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and start with the Flowlink Cipher demonstration. All right, now we'll go ahead and do a quick demonstration for you. We are not going to be able to go through all the fine details of what Cipher can do. This is not intended to be a training session, but we do want to give you a high-level overview of what this is capable of doing. Again, we can provide training later on as you need. But when you first log into Cipher, what you'll find is what we call the dashboard view. And the dashboard view is a real quick view, quick way to assess your system. For those of you that may have had Flowlink Global in the past, you would see something similar to this where you would log in, see what's going on. A lot of our customers are looking at, I want to know where I need to put my resources. So that's what the dashboard view does. It gives you a quick way of viewing. We've added a lot of capabilities to what we used to do with our dashboard view. And what you'll see here, these things are called gadgets. And what a gadget is a way to display data, again, very quickly and easily for each user. You'll notice there are different types of gadgets. I'll click on that. And you'll see there's what's called a graphing gadget, a note gadget, or a site gadget. And the differences between those would be, this would be a site gadget. So what this is going to do is this is going to give you a quick down and dirty view of level, velocity, and flow. Hard coded in there, but you can scroll over it and you can see what those instantaneous readings are. You can see the date time that last pushed. You can see the voltage. In this case, we have AC powered units, so we can't see the voltage on it. But this gives you, again, a very, very quick way to view. One thing you'll notice on this is the red hue around the outside of the box. What that's telling you is this was or is in an alarm state. This particular one had 58 different alarms. We left it in an alarm, which was a high level alarm. We didn't want to clear it so that you could see what that would look like. These hues could be a yellow, which means the unit didn't call in, or a red, which is a hard alarm. These alarms can be set on anything you want: high level, high flow, low velocity, bad velocity, whatever. So again, very quick glance, you know what's going on. The other thing you'll notice is these three dots up here. I can go to those. I can change a lot of different things that we couldn't do in the past. We can say, how often do we want to refresh this view? Maybe I want to see more than 24 hours. I want to see 72 hours. We can also actually go to the site and see what's going on. So in this particular case, I have an alarm and I could go to that. I'll show you that in a minute. But for now, I'm going to just go through the rest of these. We can actually create a graph from this, or we can delete this. The other thing you'll notice under the plus is, in addition to setting these different ones, I can go to dashboard view and I can add different dashboards. What that means is your field crews or whoever could log in, have their own dashboard view, however they want it, looking at whatever they want, and they don't need to see all the other stuff. A good example of that would be a customer that maybe their field crews want to see battery voltage. Well, now you can do what's called a graph gadget. What a graph gadget is one like this. In this particular one, we have level and velocity, and we have it on the same pane. We also have flow rate in the second pane, but you could have voltage. So that's a very popular one. We might have 10 meters out there, and we want one gadget to show me the voltages so I could see which ones are dropping off and which ones I need to do something with. The other one that you'll see here is what's called a notes gadget. What that is that's just a basic notes gadget. It is write a note, say, hey, next time you go out, change batteries or take batteries out. So you can also move these around. You can change the size of them. So there's some things you can do to customize your dashboard. What you'll also notice in here that I really like is what's called the help screen. So under help, I can click on that. And now I can go in and actually see what information I want, or if I need some assistance on how to create something, I can look at that. But the other one you can look at is what's called the, oops, sorry, wrong one. Under feedback is the one where I can go in now and I could submit feedback to say, okay, this didn't work, or, hey, I'd really wish you could make this feature. This is really important because this will now allow you to communicate with our technical support guys. They will get this information, they will put that, log it, and say, hey, if we could do this, that would be a really nice feature. So a much, much better way of interfacing with you in the field. So that's pretty much dashboard view. If I go to map view, what map view is going to do is give me a GIS map. There's nothing at this point overly spectacular, except that it does give you a very, very easy way to look at your sites and see, oh, I have a red alarm here. I can click on that and it would say, yeah, I'm in an alarm condition. I can zoom in on it and I could now do a number of different things. I'll go through that in just a few minutes, but you could actually create a graph from this screen. You could do some more advanced analysis, pull up a graph from a template. You could compute data sets such as INI, and you could actually go to the site from here. So if I click on go to site, one thing you'll notice here that's really, really cool is that I'm able to now click on a site. I'm in an alarm condition. I can look and see a lot of things. This attachment one was a feature that people asked for forever. This allows me to now put pictures, notes, video is a big one, work orders, work permits, the whole bit now are attached to this site. So it is stored on the cloud, safe. If you ever have any issues, you want us, our tech support people, to help you look at something. A video says a 1,000 things for us. So you could attach a video to this and we can see exactly what you're looking at. On the right here, you're going to see a lot of other things like the name, the address, the manhole number, if it's active or inactive, and we license by the site. So I'm not going to go into great detail, but if you have 10 sites, you would need 10 licenses. If you add a site, you may need to deactivate one in order to have that or add another license. And then we can give you things like how often do we want to be notified if it didn't call in. So this is one of those now where we could set up a lot more capabilities. We could do it days, hours, and so on. The lat launch information, that's what we need for the GIS map. And you could just go into the edit and you could put those in. So that's how you would enable your GIS map. Events, these are some things that you can look at to say data push, data started, what happened at that site. You can sort by those. I'm not going to go into that. But then the other thing that's really nice is that you can look at the devices. So now you can tell what is actually on site. I have, in this case, a 4300 signature flow meter. It tells you serial number and the software version. This is really important for you to be able to track where your equipment is, but it's also important for us because when if you have an issue, we will want this information. We will want the serial number, we'll want the software version, and this will tell us exactly what our guys need to know to be able to help you out. We can also tell what's stored in that meter. So this would tell us exactly what's being stored in the device. And then finally, logs. Logs would tell us if something's changed or added and things like that. Okay, so I'll go back to map. This is our map view. Again, you can put a lot of information on this. We will eventually probably expand this GIS mapping to include a lot more details as time goes on. So now let's go to sites. Under sites, this is what would tell you what sites are active or what are inactive. There's some tools here. One, we can search by groups or tenants. Daryl's going to talk about tenants in a little bit, but a tenant is a way for you to separate out different groups that you want to be able to see the data. So a flow service company, if you're one of those out there, you may want to break it up so that this city sees their data. That's all they see. The other one sees theirs. We could break it up by groups or site name. One of the other things that we added that's fairly new is a sort by. We can sort by last time it pushed, or really what's almost more important would be voltage. So now you can actually have it lay it out for you, which one has the lowest voltage and climb up to the highest. So now at a quick glance, you can tell I need to get out there and do something. And again, alarms, you can do those as well. Under this, I can change the ascending, descending order. You'll notice this right here with the different color, that's called a tenant. And we now color coded those so that you can see, okay, that tenant is in this group. And then finally, we can go in and we can search or look for inactive sites. So you have 10 licenses, you add an 11th, you can deactivate a site, which means you can still access the data and work with it, but you cannot accept new data until you add a new site license or disable this one of the other ones and re-enable that one. Under this is another nice thing where we can import any other data non-ISCO data as long as is it a CSV format, and it would be in an ISCO type format. So now we can bring anybody's data in, but it's going to take a little bit of work to be able to get that in. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to show the data that we're looking at. In this, you'll notice this, the same screen that we had in the map view, same as in the dashboard. You'll notice we can change who we're looking at, but we can also deactivate or activate the site. But we can also do a real quick graph. If I click on that, it's going to automatically pull up the data. I'm going to just zoom in on a little bit of the time. I'm going to go last 7 days. And in this case, let's see, change that guy. I'm going to add velocity. So I click once on velocity. It's going to pull in the velocity. And if I want to see flow rate, I can click and it's going to automatically add the flow rate. I can scroll over any point on my graph and I can see the instantaneous date, time, and the value associated with it. I can also click on that and I can change, or I could add different things to it. So let's see, say I wanted to look at my Doppler power, which is a measure of the quality of the reading. I can drag that actually into the graph itself. So I can very easily add to a pane. I can mix match. I can do whatever I want to do with that. We can also go to specific dates. So I can say from this date to this time, and you can pull up a calendar and actually do whatever you want to do on that. So very, very useful tool for you. Get back out of that, go back into sites. And then now we have graph from a template. So when you create, if you created your own template, which means you set up your own system, you could do that. We could also, or your own graph, we can compute data sets. Daryl's going to show you that. And we can also, again, go right back to the map view. So a lot of different ways of doing the same thing. So there's some repetitiveness here so that once you learn it, you're able to move around. We can also assign these to groups. I don't have a group set up, but if you had multiple sites, you can easily create a group, basin 1, basin 2, basin 3, and all those meters go into basin 1, the other 20 go into basin 2, and so on. So now it's very easy to organize those and manage them. And with that, I'm going to turn over some of the advanced capabilities and some of the new stuff that we're doing to Daryl. Daryl?
All right, thanks, Rick. So I want to talk to everyone about the alarm features. And you're going to notice that a lot of things that Rick talked about are going to cross over into some of the other analysis and alarms. And so that is by design. We wanted to make it easy for you to access different parts of this program from wherever you're at on different screens. So for instance, this alarm screen looks a lot like the events that Rick was showing you before. And so one thing we have on here is it shows the history of whenever your sites had pushed. Other things we can look at is your program settings. So if somebody went out there, programmed the site, you want to take a look at it, you can easily just click on programs. It's going to show you all the program settings for that particular instrument. And you can also look at the summary. And so what the summary is going to tell you, if it's a signature meter, it will automatically generate reports for your level, min, max, average, flow rate, temperature, whatever parameters you have in there. So this is a nice way to automatically get a report. For those of you that are familiar with our 4200 series, you know that created a monthly and a daily report, which we can also do that in the signature meter, which allows you to see it right here. Other things that we can do is go into the settings for alarms. And so this is where it gives you the option to program a high level alarm, high flow alarm, or even down here, I've made a combination where I wanted, if this particular site had a level greater than 24 inches and velocity less than a ½ foot per second, because what I'm looking for is a surcharge condition. So I can put and or features in there for my alarm functions. And you'll notice over here where we have it subscribed. So when I have that check mark, what that's going to do is then that it tells the system that you want to be notified when it's met this alarm condition. And so if a certain large storm events coming, you may want to turn on some different alarms. And so you just have to simply check and uncheck the subscribed, and it will send you either a text message or an email, whatever you prefer. And if you want to create an alarm, it's pretty simple. You just have to select your site. If we want to do level, I just bring over my condition, choose greater than 24 inches. And then that's it. That's all it takes to set up an alarm. So we'll move on to the analysis. What we have here under analysis is whenever you've created a graph, you can save it. And so you have the option to then look for your different saved graphs. You can actually search for different graphs by just typing in a name. So anything with the UW, could just type in a UW and it'll bring up all those particular options. And as you can see, we can create a variety of different types of graphs. And this is for whatever you want. So we have scatter plot, different line graphs. As Rick mentioned earlier, we can even set it up for battery voltage. So we got a lot of different features, and I'll get into how to create a graph manually here in just a couple seconds. A new feature we added is the search option. So with the search option, what I can do is I can take, say, my flow rate. I just drag it up here. And whenever my flow rate is greater than 600 gallon per minute, it will automatically search through my data on that particular site. And then it's going to show me when those events occurred. And so what we can see here is that on July 1st, for 16 hours and 55 minutes, my flow rates were greater than 600 gallon per minute. So it's an easy way to search for any parameters. If you're looking for high pH or low pH, different flow rates, you can easily tell it to search for whatever you're looking for. And then we have the option for an event flag. So I can just tell it to flag that. And then when I go and look at my graph data, it'll show when that data event occurred. Now the templates that we'd mentioned earlier, as you can see here, Rick has created multiple different templates. And so the idea of that is that if you create a like this master flow template or an INI template, one that you want to use for your different sites, you can create it once and then just apply that to your other sites. So you only really have to create it one time and then you just reuse it for your other sites. So I'll jump back to the graph screen. If we had a graph that we wanted to see, you could either just simply click on it to open that existing graph, or go back to analysis. If we want to create one, it's as simple as just going down to the plus sign in the bottom right corner, clicking on create new graph, and then I can choose my site. I can click on level. It's automatically going to create a level graph. I can set my time frame for the last 72 hours or whatever time frame I like. We have some other options up here where we can change the color. If you don't like purple, we could set this to blue. And we can change the units of measure. And so the reason I'm bringing up this units of measure, I've found that Flowlink users in the past have, by default, it's set in metric, and they weren't aware that you could go into the user properties and change your default to whatever units you like. So we can also set our preferences in Flowlink Cipher to, inches, feet, meters, whatever you prefer. And then, but you can also do it here in the property screen. And then we've added another feature called horizontal line. And so I could set that at, say, 4.5 inches. And what that does is it just draws a line across for a quick reference. I found people like to use this on pH to know when they're, say, above 10 pH, or in this case, if it's a surcharge, we can easily draw a line for a quick reference to determine when you've exceeded a certain value. And we can easily turn that off. Now, another thing we've added is you can actually click and drag the parameters into the same pane. Whereas in Flowlink, you had to go into properties and make that change. So this made it a lot easier for you to click and drag whatever parameter you want into the individual pane. If I want separate panes, I just single click, and then I'll add it into the second pane. Another thing we can do with this is set this for a scatter plot. So I just click on the gear, choose scatter plot, and it quickly creates a scatter plot for us. I don't have a lot of data on here, so it's kind of a smaller line. But as you can see, it's pretty easy to toggle back and forth between the two. Now, once I've created a graph that I like with this one with the level and velocity, I can zoom in and out with my scroll bar on my mouse. I can come down here and give it a custom name, or you can just leave the default name in there. Since the UWH4 already existed, it just automatically puts a time and date stamp behind it to make it different. You have the ability to make it a public graph. So if you are sharing your Flowlink Cipher with other people in your office or even outside the office, you can have set it as a public graph. That way other people can view it and use it. Or I can come down here and save this as a template. As you saw we had earlier, I just have to save it as a template, give it a name, and then we can use that for other sites. And if I want to save it, I just click on the button on the bottom right corner, and that will automatically save our site. A couple things about our graph. Once I've created a graph, I do have the ability to export this to CSV. So I can set up whatever data I want. If I had it set to relative, for last month for daily flow totals, then I can each month just open it, click on export, and automatically have my report. The other buttons we have is we can export this as a PDF file. So it'll give me this graph and the detailed data underneath, the tabular data, or we can even download the image. Other things that we have the ability to do on this screen is to toggle the original data. So we can edit data. There's legitimate reasons why you'd want to edit data. Maybe somebody went out there and forgot to calibrate level, or they did it incorrectly. We can come in and select the edit data, and then that would allow you to go in and actually adjust some of your data. So with our edit data, we have the option to do an autocorrect. As you can see, it creates a smoothing of that data. So if you had some abnormal spikes, we could automatically autocorrect that. You can eliminate the data in that time frame if you like, and then you have the option to undo your edits. And so if you accidentally made a change in your edit screen, you can go in here and then we can toggle and restore the original data as well. And other features on this screen is we can zoom in and out, with the scroll mouse, or if you're on a tablet and you don't have a mouse, we have the zoom features up here on the top right corner. Now, if you like to see your data as a table or both, we can click on the tabular button. So then it gives us the graph and the table. If I want to go back and make some changes, we have the edit graph button, which takes us back to the screen where we were before. And then I can add my other parameters such as flow rate. So we'll move on from the graphs to onto our calculated data set. And so what that is, I close this graph. I can come down here again and choose compute data set. And with compute data set, we can now do a couple things here. I can choose which site I want to use. This gives me the ability to do a dry flow and a INI graph. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to do a dry flow first. So I can just click and drag my dry flow in here. I can select the period of time that I want to use for that. And we'll use this time right here. And so by default, it's set to 1 week. So I pick a date, it's going to bring in 1 week of weather, and it's going to just keep repeating that time frame. And I'll just give this a name, dry DK test. And then we can preview that data. And what it's going to show us is the repeated data, as well as the new data is going to be overlaid on top of that. And I just simply hit create. Tells me it created my computed data set. Now that I have my dry flow, I can use this with my INI. So with that, I just drag in my flow rate again. I can drag in my dry flow that I just created, and we'll call this INI DK for me. And so what we're going to see here is now I have my dry flow that's going to keep repeating in red. I will have my real-time flow, and then it's also going to show me what the difference is from my dry versus my regular flow, which is actually shown here in red. That's what our difference is. And so I can save that as a template, or not as a template, but I just saved that as a parameter. Now I can actually use that along with my other parameters, level, velocity, and flow. As we can see, we have it down here. So I can just create a new graph. If I want to look at my regular flow rate, I just click on it. And I can drag in my INI flow. And then this will allow me to then change the colors like I was able to do before. We can save it and then export it into a CSV file. All right. And so next I will move on to the users. And so when you purchase Flowlink Cipher, you're purchasing it by the site, but you can add multiple users to that site. So you can add as many people as you want, and then they're considered tenants. And so all these people are tenants, and you can give them different rights as to what they want to be able to see. As you can see, I have most of the rights turned on for me, but if you wanted to have this displayed just for maybe the public or your end user, you could set them up just as a viewer, so they can't edit any of the data. They can just see the public graph that you created, and you can limit or give access to as much or as little of the data as you want to. And onto our settings tab. So this will tell you how many sites you have active, how many sites you have available still. And so you can actually go in and enable and disable sites. So you have one site out there for a couple weeks and you no longer have active data pushing in there. You just make it inactive, and then that will allow you to then open up that site to move on to a different location. The tenants that Rick was pointing out earlier, so you have the global and then the guest, so we can set them up as different colors. In this, that way it's easy to identify which tenants you have. And then we have a history just showing when people are logged into the system. So that's a quick overview of all of our sites. And if you have additional questions, feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen or contact us. Sharon will provide you with the contact information here in just a second. Thank you for your time.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us with this webinar. As Daryl mentioned, on the screen, I have provided the email addresses for Daryl, Rick, and also our product support. To answer the questions that have been submitted, we have been joined by Rick and Dennis McGinnis from our product support. As a reminder, please submit your questions through the Q&A section within Zoom. With that, I'll turn it over to Rick and Dennis.
All right, well, thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Daryl and Dennis, for both helping out on this. We'll go ahead and we'll get to some of the questions. We don't have a lot of them yet, and hopefully we'll have some. We're going to go through what some of the questions we had this morning, which were very good questions as well, and that might spur a little thought process on your end. One of them, though, is will we have access to a demo site to play around with the functionality of Cipher? And the answer is yes. We've been working on this for quite a while. We're trying to figure out exactly how we want to do that. So we want to allow customers, reps, whoever, to be able to access the data, play around in Cipher, get comfortable with it. But we also want to have the ability to take and provide like a modem if you wanted to do your own demo, your own test. And so that way actual live data from the field would be going in there. So the answer is yes, we're working on it, or we don't have it perfected yet. So anyway, that's coming soon.
All right, thanks, Rick. I'll take one of these questions here. One of them was was questions about the pricing of the Cipher. Is it by site, by users? What's the time frame? The answer to that is it is by site. It is by number of sites, and we do have that broken down to single sites, 10 sites, 25 sites, 100 sites, etc. So depending on what your needs are, we can mix match those to make that work. Moving into that same question, I'd like to add the fact that we do have the ability to allow people to turn on and off site licenses. So let's say you have 50 sites, a 50 site license, and you've got 50 sites deployed, but now you got a project getting shut down. So you can shut, let's say, 20 of those sites off, and I got another site starting up. I can go ahead and turn 20 sites back in to take their place. So it does allow you as the end user or the person who has the admin account to turn off and on sites as you see fit to make the best use out of the license you have. On that, we had a follow-up question. Does it cost to add more people to view? And the answer to that is no. The site manager, who has the rights for that, actually can send invites out to people to their email, set up their accounts, give them the roles that allow them to see what they see fit or needs.
Dennis, while you're on a roll there, can you answer that question that just popped up?
Can the site belong to multiple tenants? Yes, you can. Let me think. Well, no, actually, that's a good question. I was thinking you could have people can belong to different, but the site itself, it only belongs to one tenant. So when you drop down, now you could make, there's a way to, that's a good question, Dave. I'm thinking outside the box here. There would be, I could see a way to do that. What you would do is you would actually make multiple tenants. And so what you could do, then you could add that site to that tenant. So yeah, I think you could. You would just have multiple tenants' names, and then you could put those people in there. So there's some ways to get around that. In the tenant system, you could add those sites in there and then add different people to those tenants. So you could have one guy have access to a certain number of sites while another person has access to a mesh of those sites as well as others. So yeah, you should be able to pull that off.
All right, I'll go ahead.
You want to get the next one? Go ahead.
No, I'm going to let you get that one. I'm going to let you take a minute to take a breather.
Go ahead.
So one that we had this morning was, do I need a modem in order to use Cipher? And the answer is no, you do not. You can download Cipher manually and the meter manually and upload it into Cipher. So you do not need a modem. Modem obviously is the best way, especially when you're working with stuff like, the laser flow where it's non-contact, no maintenance. So the data just comes in, it's on the web. But a modem is the preferred method if you can, but you do not absolutely have to have a modem.
So another question we got is, can it be installed on local server? Cipher currently is a cloud-based software, so no, Cipher itself is not available on the local server, but that does kind of bleed into another question that we had. If you already have Flowlink, the question was, if we already have Flowlink Pro and I want to use Cipher, do I have to abandon Flowlink Pro to use Cipher, or can I use them both? And the situation on that is, for a local installation, you could still use Flowlink Pro. What we would actually do is, if you wanted to use Flowlink Pro and have Cipher use as your web interface so you could access it remotely, what we would actually do is replace your IP listener that's currently active for your Flowlink Pro, and we replace it with an upgraded IP listener that has the ability to not only bring that data in to continue to bring to your Flowlink Pro, but it also makes a copy or cuts it loose to make a copy up onto the Cipher cloud. So you would actually have data in both places, your Flowlink Pro, but you'd also have sites that you wanted to be pushed up to Cipher up there so you could access it when you're on the road.
Okay, good answer. How will I interface rain gauges to Cipher? Was one of the questions we had this morning. And there's a couple ways of doing it. We can import data for one. So if you have another source of rainfall information, we can bring that in as a CSV and import it. We can also, though, if you have ISCO 2105, which is one of our interface modules, you can connect a rain gauge directly to it, and it will push the data to it, the rain gauge data, as well as if you had a signature flow meter, again, you'd have all your flow data, everything you need right there, including rainfall that would get pushed to Cipher.
Okay, we got another question. Can SCADA programs pull Cipher? Currently, we cannot, but the but is that is on our to-do list. We are implementing what's called APIs. And what an API does, it runs on a server or and it becomes a bridge. It can go out and mine the data or request data from the Cipher cloud database and bring that down. The API does a lot of converting on its own, so it would also be able to bring that into your SCADA format. So there's the problem with the APIs is it's going to be very dependent on the other side of the software. In other words, what are we working with as far as getting that data in there? So the APIs are going to be developed basically as it comes, the need comes about. So if you've got a particular product or brand that you're aware of that supports the API ability to bring that data in, we can work with you and we can develop some APIs for it. That is still a future type feature that we're looking at into. It is on our roadmap. It's not something we support quite yet. Right now, it would have to be manually with the export import ability that's already built into Cipher.
That kind of ties into maybe the question right below that. Dennis, you want to keep rolling on that?
Let's see. Can I call sites from Cipher, that one?
No,
because I do
can
got
you
it.
download or archive data from Cipher.
Oh, I didn't scroll down far enough. Sorry. Yeah. Can you download or archive data from Cipher using local Flowlink in an SCB? Yes, you can. So with Cipher, you have the ability to export the data as a CSV, which already has the Flowlink compatible header and layout. So it imports very easy into Flowlink. As far as getting data from your Flowlink up to Cipher, that was actually a question we had as well before. So this is good that it's reoccurring. Basically, the way to do that is in the new Flowlink, our archive data transfer option in there, that screen, we've updated that user interface. And now it has the ability to select which sites, date ranges, and you can take any data that's inside your Flowlink Pro or inside your local database and upload that to the Cipher web. So on that, I had another question. Can you call sites from Cipher? And that one is a no. Cipher right now just supports data coming into it. And for those cases, if you're going to call the sites, we're still going to want to use Flowlink to call those sites remotely. And we are looking at developing some more tools in the future that you'll be able to call, from tablets and phones and different ways of getting into there. But for right now, to contact your modems remotely, if you want to contact them, Cipher is not the way to do that. You would still want to use Flowlink.
All right. Another question we had actually this morning was, does this have a maintenance log? And the answer is yes and no. We have a lot of logging capabilities. If they make changes, they add things to the program or to the meter, different parameters, we log that information. But as far as I calibrated the level, I did this, that would probably be done in your notes gadget on the dashboard view. Then you could say calibrated level on site 1 at this date and time, and then it's always going to be there. Another place that you could do this would be in the site information tab or screen. And what that would allow you to do, again, is put pictures, video, and I can't stress enough how important video and pictures are, especially when if there's an issue or, hey, what's going on here? we will almost always ask, do you have any pictures, any video? And that is so important to help you, help us help you. And again, you could put any notes, any kind of Word documents you want in their Excel sheet saying this is when we calibrated, and just keep uploading that. So it's one way you can do it, a couple ways you can do it. And do we have any other questions? I gotta scroll down here.
Let's see. Can Cipher display edited data from Flowlink Pro? No. The reason is, though, I want to clarify the difference between Flowlink Pro and Cipher is they are separate databases. As I mentioned earlier, if you have existing Flowlink Pro and you want to utilize Cipher, while the data in the field will hit the IP listener, the IP listener basically makes a copy in both places. That's a really great question, David, because we run into that where people do edits in their Flowlink Pro and they expect them to automatically show up in Cipher. And while we can do that, it's a manual process. So if you wanted any edits to take place in Cipher, what you would have to do is once you do your edits in Flowlink Pro is you would simply do an archive up to Cipher. As I mentioned earlier, how to get data from Flowlink Pro up to Cipher is you can use the archive function. Same thing here. You make edits in Flowlink Pro and move those up to Cipher and they'll show up in Cipher at that point. With that though, if you do have data, let's say you have last year's data and you're just turning on Cipher for the first time and you want last year's data up there and you've already done all those edits and everything to Flowlink Pro, once you get your Cipher account and you archive transfer that data from your Flowlink Pro with that transfer interface, it will move all the edits and everything right up to the database for you. So all that stuff will be included there. But just to be clear, if you make any changes in Cipher, edits in Cipher, because Cipher does allow the editing, that's not going to show up in Flowlink Pro either. So it's a two-way direction. They're really not connected in any way unless you do an archive transfer. Now, it's not to say we're not going to have something in the future where we could do like a 24-hour update where I know there was talk of maybe something doing that every 24 hours in the background. You could have your Flowlink Pro, move your data up to your Cipher. So any changes that you've made throughout that day would then magically show up overnight because you'd walk in and your computer in that time, the server could upload that data automatically to Cipher. So those changes would be made. But right now it is a manual function, but hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, they are separate databases. So any edits would have to be made in both places, or at the very least made in one place and sent up. So it's in both places. Good questions, guys.
Yeah. Did another one pop up?
That's just Dave saying what a great job I'm doing.
Good. Somebody has to do that. Well, right. I think folks, we're about done here. Looks like we've answered a lot of questions, and again, a lot of really good ones out there. Keep them coming. If you do have questions right now, we just listed Daryl and my email as well as the product support group. But you can also get a hold of Dennis at dennis.mcginnis@teledyne.com as well. So let's not forget about Dennis. But we're more than willing to help you out. Look forward to this product. As we said, it is going to be an ever growing, expanding program. And we're going to look for help and input from a lot of you out there on what do we need to do? What's going to make it better? So again, very excited about it. Thank you all for attending. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon.
Actually, Rick, Vincent threw one in there at the very end. I'm going to answer before we let you go. He's basically asking, can we remotely program, or do you still need to program remotely via Flowlink? Vincent, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier when I was saying, can Cipher contact the meters? Can you call them? Cipher does not support calling in the meters at the moment. We're still going to have to use Flowlink to call the sites to do any type of program changes, downloading if you want to do direct downloads. So there's still a need for Flowlink here. While we are looking at Cipher to take over a lot more of the heavy load and carry the broad shoulders of Flowlink and what it can do right now and in the near future, it's not going to be able to call those sites. We're still going to rely heavily on Flowlink to do those remote programming, remote connections, and downloading. Okay, so now I will leave it to Sharon. I think we're done with our questions. Sharon, thanks for your help today, and I'll let you do the closing statements.
Well, thank you, Rick and Dennis, for answering all the questions. And I would like to thank all of you for submitting such great questions today. I think it helped the entire audience to further understand what Cipher can do for us. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar was re-recorded and a video will be made available. When it is available, you will receive an email invitation inviting you to view the webinar again. If you did not have time to write down any of the email addresses, feel free to email me directly and I would be happy to forward them on to Dennis, Daryl, and Rick. I would like to once again thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your day.